Morning folks, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and this morning I thought I'd bring you along as I put together a project for my Common Man crossbow. And you saw that Barnett Wildcat crossbow in a past video, and I use XX75 Easton arrows for that crossbow, and those older type recurve crossbows require a little bit heavier arrow and a little bit heavier tip, and I use 125 grain field points and 125 grain broadheads in this crossbow with aluminum arrows. It gives me the best grouping. But these arrows are only 18 inches long, and I want to make a hip style quiver from leather that can be worn on my belt while I'm hunting or attached to a backpack when I'm traveling. So we're going to take a nice heavy piece of leather here and make a quiver out of it, and we're just going to make a tubular style quiver that will kind of be cone shaped in the end. And I think what we're going to do is we're just going to cut it off so that we've got an area that's straight to work with. We'll figure out what we need for the circumference of our quiver. We'll cut a wooden plug. We'll leave ourselves an area at the top that we can fold over for a belt loop that we can rivet. And then we will nail the wooden plug into the bottom and lace the side of it up with leather lace. It should look very rustic when we're done, but it will be very functional and durable and probably will last a lifetime if the leather's taken care of. Stay with me and we'll get started. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is cut myself a straight side here, and I've just tacked down this leather, or held it down to my cutting table basically with a straight edge and a clamp. And I'm just going to come in here with an open L knife that's good and sharp and score that leather a couple of times until I cut it through. Good heavy thick leather like this is going to take you multiple cuts to get through the leather. We know as far as length goes, we don't want these arrows necessarily to be buried all the way down in the quiver, but we don't want much sticking up out of there either. So we can make that decision now as well, remembering that we're going to have a plug in there. If we make it about to here, that's going to give us enough length. So if we want to figure out an even number from that, let's say we're going to go about 15.5 inches, would give us a good round number there. Okay, I want the bottom of my quiver to be round, obviously, and the top to be a little bigger round if I'm making a cone. So I'm going to use some common object that's round for the bottom so that I can trace my plug on wood and also give myself a measurement for how wide I need this material. And I can do that by just taking a piece of string and wrapping it around the object like this, and then pinching it off. And that's going to give me a length that I can put against a measuring stick just like this, that tells me I'm going to need 9 inches to make this circle. But now I know that I need a 9-inch section on the bottom of this, and then I need to decide how much wider I want it to be at the top. And if I want it 1 inch bigger here than it is here, then I'm going to have to add to that. Okay, so I've started to give myself a few layout lines here where I've measured that 9-inch width here, giving myself an extra 1.5 inches by going 3/4 and 3/4 to make the top larger than the bottom. And now I just need to take this line here at the bottom and connect it to this line, and that's going to give me that cone shape that I'm looking for. And I can just bring those lines together just like this, and that'll give me a cut to line. And then do the same thing here to give myself a cut to line. Now what we need to do is, we have our cone shape here and here. We need to measure where we're going to be as far as our center line goes here of our cone, okay? And that's the outside of our cone to there, to the outside of our cone here is 10 inches, all right? So 5 inches is our center mark, and that's going to give us our reference for that tab that we want to put on here at the top to fold over into a belt loop. Now we want to figure out this belt loop portion, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that about 2 inches wide. So I'm going to go 1 inch from the center here and 1 inch from the center here. And that's going to be the width. And then I'm going to go up. Remember that I'm folding it over. And I want about 2 inches, so I'm going to go about 4 1/4 to give myself some fold there. All right? Now if I come in here with a straight line, and I can pretty much eyeball a straight line because now I've got a square box to work with here. I can pretty much eyeball a straight line there. Come in here with a straight line. And here with a straight line. And give myself that fold over that I'm looking for. Now this will be tucked back and tacked to this to give me that belt loop, and it won't be hanging on the outside. If I want this thing to be more like a dangler, and I want this to be the top, then I would just take this 4 inches and add probably another 3 inches to it, maybe even 4, to become a dangler. Just like this. Come up another 4 inches on that thing. And now when I fold this over, what's going to happen is it's going to fold here, tack into here at the top, and this will become like a dangler sheath at that point that hangs down from my belt. And I think that's what I really want. Now this, I don't want this to be drastic, so I'm probably going to come in here with this and put a little bit of an arc there, right here, and the same type of arc here. And I can eyeball that. I've made enough spoons and things like that. I can eyeball those arcs and get them pretty close to each other just by eye. So there is really the outline that I'm going to cut all the way out to this angle and all the way out to this angle and then straight down. And I'll probably round this off just a shade here after the fact and just a shade here after the fact and fold that underneath or over the top and rivet that thing down. So now it's just a matter of cutting out the pattern that we've drawn, and then we can begin to work on our quiver. Okay, so now I'm just going to take a piece of scrap pine here. Find a good spot on this pine and go ahead and cut the plug for the bottom, and I'll just take this over and cut it out on a jigsaw, and this will be the bottom of our quiver here that this thing will set around in here like this when we're done. Okay, so we now have our plug cut out. It's going to go in the bottom here, like this when we're done. And we need to get our lace holes lined up, and we need to get the holes lined up for this fold over, for this belt loop that we're going to put on it here as well. I think we're going to go ahead and cut this off a little bit to make it a little bit neater. And that will become our belt loop here on the outside, and this will fold around to the inside. So we need to put holes here for lacing. We need to get this set up to be tacked in place as well and dressed up a little bit. And then we're pretty much ready for final assembly at that point. We're doing pretty good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead here and pre-punch a couple of holes when I get this lined up where I want it. I'm going to go ahead and put 4 holes in this thing fairly evenly spaced. 4 rivets. And I'm just right now starting the holes for reference so I know where they're going to go. So now I'm just coming back in with my hole punch, and I'm actually punching holes in here that are a little bit oversized into the material. And again, I could do one of 2 things here. I could either lace this with leather, or I could do it with rivets. It really depends on which one you think is going to look better for the finished product and what you're trying to achieve. I'm all about natural lacing material because it's easy enough to replace in the wild. So I may go ahead and instead of using rivets in this, I may use leather lace throughout. And we now have to come in here and measure and put our holes on the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here with this plug and put it at the bottom and just kind of put a reference mark on the inside of both of these real fast, just like this, so I know where to start from with my measurements. And then I'll come in and measure my holes so I get them fairly even, and put a hole every inch all the way up the side of this, about 1/4 of an inch in from the side. And I might even go 1.5 inches. It's really up to you. I think I'm going to go 1.5 inches to there. And the next hole would be at 3. So that's where I'm going to put my first hole. And I'm going to stay right on this line all the way down. And punch those in, and then I'll match up the other side to that. Again, stay right on that line. Line up with my hole and punch it in. And you can see my mark is a little bit off the line. My mark's ahead of it up here, but I want to stay on that reference line to give myself an even spot for my stitching. Okay, now we're ready to lace up the body of our quiver, and we're probably not going to have enough in a single lace to make that happen. So what I would do is I would come in here and tie one together just like this, and just leave yourself a little bit of a dangling there fringe, and that will just kind of give you a little decoration. And then come in from the top at the very front of this thing on both sides. And when you first start lacing this thing up, it's going to look like kind of a mess for you until you get things going where you need them. So get that single lace there in the middle to begin with, because it's going to hang down like this. Because what we're going to do is we're going to come in here over the top of that one, just like this, to the very first one, and we're going to capture that knot in our very first pass. Okay? We're going to trap it between the laces just like that. And what that's going to do is it's going to hold everything nice and in place, and we'll come back in and we'll tighten all this down in a minute. But for now, just keep going to the outside just like this, just like you would be lacing up a pair of sneakers. Go a couple passes or a couple sets of holes down, and don't worry about anything while you're doing that. Once you get that in there, then you can shore things up. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this down. I missed a hole right there. I wonder why that space was so big. Just like this. And I'm going to go ahead and go 3 holes down before I do anything else. Just like this. And now, when we start to tighten things up, matter of fact, let's go ahead and go 4 down, so that you can really see how this thing's going to take shape once we start to tighten things down. Because we have a lot of slack in this right now that needs to come out. So now, as we tighten things up and we squeeze it together, we're going to pull down on opposite strings to tighten things up and flatten it out. And you can see this is where we've got that trapped right there at the top. Pull that down really, really good, just like this. Push it down flat, and then come in and pull the next one in together and pull it nice and flat, just like this. Come to the next one and pull it down flat and tight. And you're just going to consecutively do this all the way down. And you may have to come back up here and do it again momentarily, because you're getting ready to put a couple more laces in here that are going to form slack. Okay, so we came in and we punched one more hole in the very bottom, and that one we're going to come up through the top. Instead of coming over the top, we're going to come in from the bottom, just like this, to pull everything tight. And now we have our lacing on the outside. We can put our plug in. If we leave that lacing loose, it'll be easy to get that plug in there, just like this. We can pull these lacings over the top of that plug, get everything evened up in there, and then we can come in and we can tie this off. Okay, so essentially we now have a functional quiver that will easily hold our crossbow bolts. And you can see they sit right down in there just below belt level, and that's what I like. It's probably going to hold about 6 arrows. That's perfect. Now I've just friction fit that plug in from the bottom and tied this off with a square knot. So now I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to put a couple nails in this thing just to make it real secure. And I'm going to use like a number 6 box nail, but I'm actually going to cut it off with a pair of snips so that it's more like the size of a tack to put in there. And I'm going to put 4 of them in there. I'm going to put one here just off to the side of my laces. Make sure I'm in there good and solid. My plug's in there exactly where I want it. Tap that in. Come to the other side and put one in. And if my plug creeps up inside on me, I can always punch it back down through there with a piece of rebar, or drop an arrow down in there real quick and just tap on the bottom of it before I nail it. Okay, so once we get those nails put in, and that's never going to stop us from relacing this if we have to, because we left some space there on each side of our holes. We can relace this anytime we need to. If we need to tighten things up after the fact, we can, but we've got ourselves a nice hip quiver now that's going to hold our bolts just at the right height here, right at belt level. I like that really well. Okay guys, well, here's what our hip quiver looks like when it's complete. You can see that the arrows are easily accessible for use with your crossbow, easy to put back in. They carry nice and out of the way in this nice dangler type sheath. And I appreciate you guys joining me for this easy project today that I wanted to show you to make a leather crossbow bolt quiver or hip quiver for your crossbow bolts. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School. I appreciate you joining me for this video today. I appreciate everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends, and I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.